Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Master Yao's 7-Star Podcast. We got a really special program for you tonight. I'm really pleased and proud to present uh, our guest tonight as soon as I can learn how to talk. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. I know her as Miss Bliss, and it's a name well earned. My clients tell me that their work with her has been all that, and we got the proof. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we'll get into our topics. And we're basically talking about how energy work has become more a requirement for certain people these days, and how the changing role of energy work is impacting on women today. So please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Master. Yeah, I love the way you introduced me. Family, my name is Miss Bliss, and I am a student of Tantra. I am also a student of psychedelics, of which I work in both fields, in both areas. And I've been doing this for the past couple of years, and I'm continuing this journey. So that's me. It's very simple and very easy.
So our topic tonight is about, you know, we're going to get to the men in a second. But first, how this energy work, we'll just put that general label on it, is impacting women, and how the role in their lives is changing.
Oh, wow. Well, I can speak from my perspective. The first time I received energy work, it was about 40 people in the room watching me. I was the only person on the table, and I had a man and a woman working on me. I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect. However, I could feel my body fighting it because it was an unfamiliar feeling to me. Nonetheless, by the end of the session, I was in a full body orgasm that felt so blissful, so wonderful, so exciting. And my life changed after that. It changed spiritually, emotionally, I mean mentally, psychologically, like a lot of things changed in my life from that moment on. Um, and I think a lot of women should try it, because you can get a lot of healing from it. So a lot of people think it's simply just all about sexual healing, but we're talking about levels of healing that you can only learn by getting the education and taking the classes.
So
So,
let's dive into a little bit more your own personal journey. Um, you know, there is, when men do this, go through this, there's a level of diversity, but men are much more uniform in their development than women are. When women go through this, the range of experiences they have is the scope is so big, so vast, and stuff starts happening, and like, I'm just like looking like, eyes open wide, like, wow, okay, this is happening. And then I talk to them afterwards, and they're telling me all this stuff that happens. It seems like women have a much more exciting time in the beginning than men do. Do you concur? What was the first month of your experience like?
I concur with you. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe we're a little bit more complicated with things. I'm not sure. But my first month, oh my God, first of all, so the night that they worked on me, I could feel the effects days later, like the next day and the next day. And I'm sitting at work, and I still felt this blissful, orgasmic, wonderful, beautiful feeling. And the other thing that I noticed was that, I guess because there's an connection with people in my life, people that I didn't speak to in a long time, were reaching out to me. So I'm learning now that that was in connection to the session that I had. The other thing was that when they worked on me, he did focus on my heart to make me comfortable, to let him know that he was there to heal me, that he was there to express love and to nurture me and to care for me so that I could open up and receive whatever he was providing for me, whatever healing he was able to provide for me. And from then on, my heart space was changing. My heart space, because my heart was a little closed. You know, we're all a little broken hearted. But and so we all need healing, and he was able to assist me with that healing. So yeah, definitely better in the love space and in the physical space, also in the healing space, and in the connections and communications with other people in my life. So the conversations were deeper, they were softer. I was, I found that I was listening or hearing them when they were talking, as opposed to before. I guess it would kind of go over my head and I would be so anxious to communicate whatever I had to say, as opposed to sitting back, being more in the feminine energy and observing and taking in from the heart space, whatever the person was communicating to me. So a lot. And I'm still changing a lot.
I can give some testimony about that. Uh, there, without too many exceptions, most of the women who haven't done any type of energy work and then they start, there is a definite shift where I feel like, you know, even if I'm not the one doing the work, there's a definite feeling like, I'm seeing her 1 month and I'm like, hi, we're working, we're having normal conversations or whatever. And then she has some work done and she starts that journey. And then a month later, after she first started doing the work, I meet her and I'm talking to her, and it's just like, wow, something has definitely changed. And I do feel like there's like the lines of communication are open in a different kind of a way. And it's almost like, um, we're speaking a better language, or we're adding to the normal language, if you can understand what I mean. That's definitely
Mhm.
a communication thing. And that almost every man that I talk to mirrors that, echoes that, who says, his experience with women is the same. Why do you think, first of all, women feel like they are communicating better after the work?
Um, I, well, in the beginning, I thought it was because he was working on my heart chakra. And, sometimes we are afraid to communicate things because we're afraid it's not the right thing, or you don't say it right, or we'll over communicate just to protect ourselves. And we may project some negative energy, you know, not intentionally, but it could be accidentally. But I feel like now that he probably opened up my throat chakra to a certain extent, and besides my heart. So I guess between the throat and the heart, the communication was better able to flow out, and it flowed out in a way where I knew with people how they would receive it. So I knew how to present it to them, as opposed to before, that little psychic ability wasn't in connection, or maybe I wasn't in touch with my womb. But whatever it was, it helped me to know more how to communicate to that person, so that no matter what I was saying, it was received, and then we were able to get through whatever issues or problems or whatever it was. So I feel like it was maybe a combination of activating my throat chakra, my heart chakra, or maybe it was the whole alignment, going on, because I wasn't a full body orgasm. So
So we're talking tonight about the role that energy work plays in the lives of people. And we had a conversation a few nights ago where we focused a lot on men, we focused on therapy, and we focused how the work, affects men. So when women are working on men, it's very, very powerful. And I'm seeing some stuff happening right now with some of the men I'm working with, where they're kind of struggling, and then a particular woman comes in and starts working on them, And the next thing you know, they're having, they're just having these experiences because of her. Um, in terms of how it's affecting you, how this work is affecting you, when the men are working on you, I've heard testimonies that it's not uncommon. For instance, one woman told me recently that she used to hate driving back and forth to work, her commute. And I told her, I said, well, I had not worked on her yet. And I told her, I said, well, when you're doing this and you get stuck in traffic, simply focused on the vibration of the car and imagine the last time you had work done, and then go into, as close of a state of orgasm as you can get to, and try to maintain that, you know, until the traffic eases up. She did that, and she was able to achieve her previous state from the last session she did. And she said, basically, I'm going to make a long story short. She was feeling blissful and aroused, and at certain times orgasmic for the next 40 minutes all the way into work, and that she stopped focusing on the traffic altogether. Have you had experiences like that?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And first I just want to say, I know that hers was maybe 40 minutes. For me, it's sometimes it would last days. And it's almost like you said, where you don't remember that you're doing this and you're in this orgasmic state, and it almost becomes natural. And so I can be maybe 2 or 3 days in this blissful orgasmic state, sort of like a euphoric, feeling of like good energy. And no, it's like no matter what happens or what anybody
You
says,
don't
it
care.
doesn't get to you. And people are looking at me like, this is not the old Bliss that we know, because I am a firecracker, honey child. And they were like, you're just like, what's going on with you? And I wasn't, in the beginning, I wasn't able to fully explain what was going on, because I myself, I was just enjoying the feeling, enjoying the state of peacefulness and joy and orgasmic, euphoric energy, that I was just like, oh, life is just beautiful. And that literally was my response. Life is just so wonderful, so beautiful. Now I have a better understanding as to what's going on, and I can pull on it and recreate it over and over and over again, no matter what situation you're in. It's sort of like I guess like a magical power, I guess. Yeah, it's sort of like a magical power over yourself and over your energy. And it even can affect people that are around you, like in the work office. So, or even at home too. So it's like some type of magical energy within me has been activated. And over time, I've learned to play with it and to use it and to manipulate it on my behalf and others in some instances. So,
So,
yeah.
I've been working with men for a long, long time, you know, and you know, most men, when they first start this type of work, it's kind of foreign to them, and they don't really exactly know how to express what's happening to them. But it's been going on for so long now, and I've worked with so many men that I have a pretty good idea of the stages that they go through. For women, I can also say I've got a good idea of what's really happening to them, but it's a difference between women who are getting worked on and they don't know how to do it. They just they know how to receive. So the man knows how to do it. The woman's just receiving. And then they're sort of like in this place, this in between place. But when they learn how to do it, when they learn how to take part in it, and they start working on the man, then it's a whole nother ball game. When you started learning how to do this to men, how did that shift your energy?
Oh my goodness. Um, So when I started to work on men, I would, it's something where I would resonate more or deeper into their hearts and their energy. And I would have a better understanding as to how they felt about certain things. And I was more empathic regarding their stories, their situations, and what they were going on in life. And even though the other stories in society may play out in my mind, I was able to sort of shift that and look at their situation and say, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to assist them and to heal them and work on them. In addition to recommending whatever else, in addition to Tantra, that I could to assist them. So I was able to hear men better, communicate better with men, and have better relationships with men. Yeah, my relationships now are just like bursting with so many men where before I wouldn't even I couldn't even see myself communicating with certain types of men. However, now I'm communicating with all of them, and I could even speak to women who would say, "Well, how could you talk to so and so because he's this or he's that way?" And I just find myself just being able to flow with them, and it's I don't see those problems. I don't have those issues. So I'm looking from it's like I'm looking from a different perspective when I'm communicating with men. It's not like I am a man, but it's more like I can certainly put myself in their shoes and sort of get what they're talking about. Yeah, I think it's helped a lot.
So the statement was made, and this has become sort of a consensus, at least within Grand Trine, with the men. Uh, the majority of the men would rather date a woman who's able to do this work. Of course, that's not who they're in relationships with for the most part. I would say maybe 20% of them have mates that are doing the work with them. And the other 80%, if they're in a relationship, it's with a woman to which this is sort of still foreign. They may allow them to work on them. So
Mm.
they don't know how to do the work back, or they're not really interested in it. So those men are saying, in the future, if I get into a new relationship, uh, the woman pretty much, that's a requirement. I need for her to be into the energy work, at least in some capacity. And so I remember, 15, 18 years ago, it was like, it was an option. Men would basically say, I want somebody that's cute, or I want someone that's this, or I want someone that's that, or no kids, or two kids, or I want someone that's 5'6" or 5 feet 11. They would have all of these kind of things. And now, almost uniformly, the first thing they say is she needs to be into the work. It's becoming more of a mandatory thing or a requirement versus an option. With women, they haven't quite got to that stage yet, but they definitely seem to be getting there. What's your response to that in terms of the role of energy work in the lives of women today?
Well, I think more women should study energy work for a number of reasons of healing themselves, but also with healing their mate. And if they are not willing to take those classes, then it could be something where they could be sick and they may end up going to the doctor, and it could be something where they themselves can heal or they can heal each other. So I would definitely encourage as many women as possible participating in energy work, even if it's just the beginning level. Just the first level is something that could change your life tremendously, physically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, relationship wise, communication wise. It could help your relationship in so many different ways. So I do recommend that more women take it. Yeah. And that's not even including the wonderful feeling of orgasms that they would have on top of that. But yeah. I mean, if you love orgasms and you want to feel that way, then I definitely recommend women take it.
Have two things. I get reactions from men, and I often want to hear the female side of it. So one of the things that men talk about is getting addicted when they find a woman that can do them. They get addicted to her. I've talked to some of your people that you've worked on, and they give me that, it's like, um, I'm like, okay, she's a very bad girl. You know, I was like, so if I didn't know you, I'd be like, she must be some kind of porn star or something, because the way guys talk about her is like, but it's like, um, first of all, do guys become a little bit obsessed with you? Tell the
Wow.
truth. Tell the truth.
Yeah. I actually, and so I, at the time, I didn't realize how powerful I was. I was just into, taking care of people, healing them and working with them and just, doing the work. And I acquired a stalker. And so he was going heavy for me. And that's when I realized after speaking to someone else in the work, and it was like, look, you have to have a little bit more, I guess control or whatever when I'm working with people, but I don't know what it is. So yes, I do have a lot of men reaching out to me. Yeah, a lot. And the more work I do on them, the more they're interested. That one guy, he became a stalker, but yeah, that one, I'm not. I think I might have went too far in that instance, so I won't give any details.
I can imagine. I've heard the stories. But when women sort of become obsessed with me, it's because they don't have any sexual outlet at all, and they haven't had any real sexual interaction for like sometimes 2 or 3 years. And and so I mean it's kind of understandable when um, you're talking to somebody and they didn't, they get used to the all the mechanical stuff. And some women can do the mechanical stuff, the vibrators and whatever, for years and not lose sensitivity. Some women, if they're just on the vibrator for a year, it just doesn't do it for them anymore. And so the women that have some type of outlet, they normally are pretty good. But the ones who just don't have an outlet, if you're giving them consistent, regular pleasure, and sometimes it's very intense, um, they get dependent
Mm.
on it. They have, and I find myself having to just like, after 4 or 5 months, basically saying, okay, we just can't do any more sessions, even though they're paying me. You just have to stop. Um, two of the tantra people that I known for a long, for over a decade. One guy was killed, by a jealous client, and I know one other guy who's very, very well known. I'm not going to say his name, but he's well known in this community, and he was shot, you know, quite a few years ago, but still, he was shot by one of his clients because he stopped working on her. So
Mm.
but at the time he didn't have he didn't have that experience yet, and he did make some mistakes, and he warned me not to do that, and I didn't. I learned my lesson. Um, and so it is true that if you have a man and he has no outlet, and he hasn't had an outlet for 2 or 3 years. And, it can be very, it can really get into your heart. I remember one of my students uh, in the last weeks of the class, we were teaching breast projection. And she was a reasonably attractive woman. She was well endowed. And I remember being in class and, there was not enough men. So, I agreed to let her work on me. And I remember I wasn't really paying much attention. And the next thing I know, I was like going into kind of like a trance. And then I thought that she was touching me. You got your eyes closed so you can't really see. But I'm like, dang, she's like touching my private parts. And I felt this energy come into my heart that was like, it almost felt like you were at your mother's breast. It was like, it was so nurturing and I kind of forgot where I was for a while. And and then I snapped out of it after about 10 minutes and I was like, what the hell just happened? What the heck just happened to me, right? And the timer went off, and I opened my eyes, and she was just smiling and everything. And I said, "So what did you do?" And she was basically saying, I didn't do what we were supposed to be doing. I just felt like, you needed, this breast projection. And so what happened to me was that that's kind of what I was preferring that particular day, right? That's what I was craving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like she just figured that out, bam. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like it snuck in there, like, and it was like, wow, this is exactly what I want. And so I could see some of the other guys that she was working on. The same thing happened to them where they did not have this in their life and they were getting it from her, which is a great if the person has other outlets,
Mm-hmm.
if you're that guy and you run into her and you have not had any real serious feminine energy in a couple of years, that's really going to take you someplace.
Yes.
Um, when men have the experience, it's not so bad, even though men have to be careful too. But when
Mm-hmm.
you have different security issues, have you ever felt that you did not want to work on a person because of security issues?
Um, I haven't felt that way yet. Like there was any security issues with working on anyone. So far I've been fortunate to feel safe and secure. But I do want to say one thing about the breast projection that women on their nipples, they have chakras directly on their nipples. And so just to give everyone, because I know men, they don't, breastfeed. So if a woman is breastfeeding, she can send the chakra energy to the baby. And it's like a etheric energy that's sent to the baby. So when she's projecting, those chakras on the nipples are like pointing at you and activating, and they're doing the work, they're sending you the energy. So I just wanted to say that. But in terms of men, in terms of security, so far since I've been doing the work, I felt okay in the environment. I felt safe, you know. I do believe that our spirit communicates to each other when we're working with the men. So you may find that, you have intentions on doing certain things to him when he gets on the table, but your spirit, or maybe his spirit may say, oh no, this is what I need. So it's not like we're just making decisions on our own. It's like something that's beyond us is telling us, um, do this and do that. And And if you're listening and you're getting the downloads, then you'll be able to work with whatever that person needs, because you're there to assist them, you're there to heal them. And so their spirit guides may also be telling you, do this, focus on that. And that's what I believe, that at least that's the messages that I get when I'm in the room with someone. I get these messages to do this and to do that. So yeah, even though I may have another plan, but I work with spirit. So.
When I'm working on women, uh, I'm working on them from the cell body level or the energy body level or the light body level. If I'm working on a woman from the light body level, they don't feel a lot, at least not right then. They'll feel it in a couple of days. But sometimes when I'm working on women, if they have a lot of complicated issues and they haven't really been touched in an intimate way, in other words, they've had sex, but it wasn't as intimate as they needed. And so if you're working on them at the energetic level, I've had women, their eyes are closed, right? And they'll open their eyes and the session is over and they'll say, well, I did not know you were going to touch me there. And I'll be like, touch you where? And they'll be like, and so they'll describe something. And this has happened to me. And when it happens to you, it kind of trips you out a little bit. So she imagined that, that my finger penetrated her. And so
Wow.
we were in class, so other people were watching. And so, and she said certain other things happened. And then I said, no, no, that didn't happen. And she says, well, I'm not complaining. It felt really good. And I think I needed that, but I just didn't know that you were going to do it. And then one of the women came up and told her, no, for most of the time, he was like 3 feet away from you. And so then she said, he didn't do this. And they were like, no, he didn't do that. He didn't do this. And I was like, no, he didn't touch you there during the entire session. And she was like, wow. And she basically was saying that I felt like I was in a cocoon. And whenever I wanted something to happen, he made it happen, like he was reading my mind. And basically, what was happening was that she was doing it to herself. She was doing it to herself. Um, and after she thought about it, she recognized that, okay, well, it was really, really gentle, and it really, now she was like thinking about it, and she thought back about it. She's like, okay, I do kind of understand what was going on now. Um, so my point is that when we're just having sex, we really limit ourselves. If I'm going to have a sexual session with a woman, I'm almost guaranteed that it's going to be successful. I'm almost guaranteed that it's going to be really, really, impactful, regardless of what type of performance, I come up with because of the energetic component. Um, it's like you're saying, you have this thing where there's this communication going on that's nonverbal. Um, and I've had several sessions with women where they just started doing stuff and it was right on time for me. It was really impactful for me. But I was like, I did not know you were at the level where you could do that. And then after the session's over, I would ask her, and she was like, I didn't know I did that. I
Mm.
do that. I didn't, in other words, I did not touch you there. I wasn't trying to. And so then you realize that something happened in my session while my eyes were closed. And that woman wasn't even capable, at least she did not think she was, of doing that. So there's like your inner self calls out and the other person oftentimes can. So I say that because the women who do the energy work, oftentimes they're able to add a component to their relationships that's otherworldly, that has less boundaries than the normal relationship. And I recommend the work so highly. It just seems to really be a thing that women can really utilize it and get amazing results. Um, so now I want to switch up and I want to talk about some of the ways that you have impacted men, um, that you're not necessarily intimate with, but you're energetically intimate with. So share
Oh,
some
wow.
with me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so one of my clients, I noticed that he's much more confident in himself, in doing things that he needs to do. Prior to that, he was a bit shy, or he felt like if he would say something, it would sound silly or stupid, or he didn't think of himself as a man who could accomplish certain things, or who could be more a great orator or communicator. So this particular client, I noticed that he's like, he's sitting up a little bit straighter with his back straight. You could physically see the confidence starting to exude from him. He's even smiling more often. The way he was dressing changed. So everything to do with building up his confidence has changed. So that's one of the things. The other client, it was also something also with the throat chakra where he needed to get some communication out. He needed to start speaking up in regarding to certain situations at his job, certain situations in his life. And he wasn't just, for some reason, he just wasn't speaking up. He just wasn't saying what was on his mind. And he was sort of clamming up and holding it in. And he was getting more and more angry because for some reason he wasn't letting it out. And so I noticed that he became more vocal, more boisterous, and just expressing himself. And I like that. And there was another client who his uh his sex got better. Now he had a woman, but it was something where their sexual relationship wasn't to what, like, he felt it could be more. And so when I started to work with him, he started to have these experiences with her that was beyond what he could even begin to explain. And so I love hearing that story because it was almost like he was a virgin and he was having sex, but he'd been with this woman for like, I think like 6 or 7 years. And it was almost as if the description was like he'd never really had making love to her. And it was almost like he had sex for the first time. And he was just like, I want to encourage her to learn this. And I was like, well, you both might want to learn it as a couple so that, you can give her and she can serve you. And it'll be sort of a little bit more of a balance. But those are some of the things that my clients have shared with me. Yeah. In addition to another client from the Dominican Republic, he traveled here to America for a session. And I followed up with him actually last week because I stay in touch with him. And he has been getting spiritual downloads from his ancestors. And he was like, he wasn't getting that before. He felt like something was being blocked. But this particular client, when I got him on the table, I could see faces around him. And I was like, so after the session, I was like, is there someone? And I knew the people or the faces around him was not alive. So I was like, did you recently have a death in the family? It was more than one face. So he began to show me photos of the people who passed away. And lo and behold, they were the people that I saw. And so when he went home, he was like, ancestors was coming down in his dreams, and then he was getting these downloads. And I said, write it down, journal it, so you could write everything down. And he started doing that. And he was like, I'm getting messages as to what I'm supposed to be doing here on this earth. And I was like, That's some heavy, heavy information, my brother. So he's traveling back to America in January and he's ready to hop on the table. So yeah, yeah.
We had a, a gentleman. He's over 50, and he feels like his best sexual years are in the past. And one of the women in the group, you know her, but I'm not going to call her name on air. And she was working with him. I was not there, and it wasn't a class. So he said, to her, and he told me later that he felt like he was actually having sex. That that he said it just felt like it did not feel like energy at all. He felt like, you know, that he was actually penetrating her. And he said at first, it shocked him, and he wanted so bad to open up his eyes, but he was like, okay, I got to keep my eyes closed and try to stay with the whole program, because he knew he could hear her footsteps. He knew where she was, and he knew she had on all her clothes and stuff. So he was like, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to try to keep the thing going on. But then it got better in that he felt like he was really connecting to her more so than his partner. And then a realization hit him that he was the one that was blocking the intimacy with his partner. And that this way that he was feeling with the woman who was working on him was the way he was supposed to be making his mate feel. That that he was like almost cocooning her. And so he took that lesson to heart. And when he went home, he tried to duplicate the feeling, only instead of with the practitioner, with his partner, with his female partner. And he said his partner just lit up and just became animated, and just, he was saying that she said this, it was the best sex that she had had with him ever. And he continued, and he still is continuing to get better. um I I I just see, and I get these types of testimonials and these types of experiences so often that it amazes me that more people aren't doing this work. Um, you know, I, it seems to me that men are able to get, at this point, the group that I'm working with in the last 2 or 3 years. If I take that experience, it seems like men can get to a better performance level. In other words, they can take women to higher levels of arousal and higher levels of, if you look at the tables that measure higher levels of orgasm than women can take men. But it also seems that women, when they're working on the men, are taking them deeper, uh, and it's they're going deeper layers, and it's more broad, and it's causing um, reactions from the men, especially emotional reactions that they normally aren't used to. So right now, it's looking like men are are a little bit advanced in terms of being able to take women to a higher place. But at the same time, it seems like the women are able to take men to a deeper place of feeling the I don't want to say penetration, but what I mean is that the feeling seems like it's penetrating deeper into their psyche. If that,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I just feel like that there's a lot of stuff that men are going through that that the only way that they're really going to get out of it, that what I call the PTSD of
Hmm.
relationships, is if women come along and are able to get deep into their psyche and energetically pull that trauma out.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
when I'm doing it for women, it's like it's almost like surgery, where you're going in with a scalpel and doing really delicate surgery to get deep in there and get into the corner behind the bone and over there like that, and finding that thing that's bothering them, that's blocking them, that's keeping them, that negative thing, and then sort of pulling it out, you know. It seems like women are good at that, and that men have all of these things that are like keeping them stopped up, keeping them from expressing themselves, keeping them from really developing. And women seem really good at that, at being able to cause
Mhm.
men the reactions that they need. Um, why aren't more women getting the message?
Um, I think it's a number of reasons. I think the first reason is trust. A lot of women um, they no longer trust. So that that barrier is up, that wall is up, and it has to be broken down. And they have to be able to trust in order to be able to open up to receive the message. So if you don't trust anything or anyone, you got all your blockers up. How are you going to receive anything? How are you going to be open to anything? You don't trust. You don't trust it. You don't trust the person. You don't trust the work. You don't trust. So women need to be able to trust that everything is going to be okay and that they're going to be treated right and that they're going to heal and they're going to be taken care of. So I think a lot of it has to do with trust. Um, the other thing is women want to have orgasms. They want to have all types of orgasms. However, when you find that women are so tied down with work, with children, with bills, and all of these things that bogs them down mentally. So I feel like sometimes, once you get them on the table and they're able to open up, that they become more receptible to receiving the message and to doing the work and to participate. But getting them to that, just to open up to partake in it in the beginning, they got to trust. They have to trust that it's going to be okay. They have to trust that they'll be safe and secure because in all honesty, they're opening up themselves to you and they're opening up their energy to you and they're on this table and if they're not familiar as to what's going to happen to them, they have to trust and put everything in your hands that everything is going to be okay, that this journey is going to be okay. And when they're on the table, all types of stuff can wake up from within them. All types of emotions can open up from within them. And then they have to be ready to do the work. They have to be willing to accept and acknowledge whatever may come up while they're on that table. Because some women, they get on the table and they could cry or they could scream in an orgasmic state or, different things and emotions and trauma may come up with them. So they have to be able to work through that. So after they trust and they start participating, the next step is to be able to start doing the work because I've seen some women maybe do it one time and they're not willing to do the work. So I think preparing them to say, okay, this is the beginning, but you have a mate, so you guys have to start doing the work and you have to communicate more. And this is going to help you with your, opening up your heart and understanding what your mate is talking about. I think that is the overall issue of why they're not like getting the message and not willing to even accept the message. But I think once they get involved, I think it's a beautiful thing. It's an absolutely beautiful thing for both men and women. Once they get the message and they get involved and they get the active active in it, I think it's a beautiful thing for sure.
I mean, when the men get into the different programs and classes, I don't have as much issue getting them to experience it, to get them to the point where you're just talking about. And then they're trying to get the women involved. And that's where we run into the resistance, for the most part, they're trying to get them to come and check it out, and it's very hard to make headway. I mean,
Mhm.
um, and oftentimes it's a battle that we don't win. Um, so henceforth, we try, we try, we try. Um, so
Well, I will say one thing that has helped me to get women to participate here where I am at is the first thing they ask me is, are you going to be there? Am I going to be there? And I think that that's an immediate response to me in regards to their level of trusting who's going to be working on them. So as long as I'm there to, reiterate and explain and to comfort them and to guide them and make sure everything is safe and secure, they were more likely to participate. And then after the first session, they were okay with going on with the guy and having the sessions after that on their own. But in the beginning, they didn't want to do it unless I was there. So that's telling me a lot about the women up here where I'm at. So yeah.
it's the same down here. I agree. I think
Mhm.
uh, if we had men and women present for the first session, if we're working on a couple, they would be the women would be more open to it. I agree. I agree that that would be. It's just not always possible in terms of schedules and whatever, but definitely.
Mhm.
So we're gonna bring this to a close with you giving us your final statement, your final summation of what do you see in the next 3 or 4 years, the role of energy work and the women in your peer group. What would you like to see? What do you think you're going to see? How is it affecting their relationships? Tell us what you think the status of it is right now and where it's going to go.
Hmm. Wow. Um, for me, I see the work growing. Here where I'm at, we're getting more men participants than we are with women. And when I say men, I mean men who are taking the classes and doing the work. And then with the women, there are not many women who are taking the classes at all. And in order for me to just get them there for a session to receive the healing, I have to be there. So, what I'm seeing right now is that the men are more likely to want to learn and participate and become the healers, and the women have to sort of be convinced to come and receive the healing. They're not even ready to learn how to heal people. So I'm hoping that this dynamic would change in the future to be equal with the men and the women, or maybe the women would see such great, wonderful benefits and they would start to want to participate with the energy work. Um, but right now, I'm seeing more men than I'm seeing more women, and it's disheartening a little bit. And I wish that I think what would help would be more conversations like this, where they feel safe and secure, like they can trust someone and they have an idea of what exactly is involved in energy work, what to expect, and then how to work through whatever it is that's going to come up in their life. In the future, I see more people practicing energy work. I feel like that it's going to be more people, but I'm not really sure as to what level of energy work. Because it's different levels and you can become masters at this. But
Oh
I
yeah.
see more and more people coming in at like the beginning level in the next couple of years. And I see men going more at the advanced level and women sort of like lagging behind them. I mean, I hope it change, but right now I see it where men are gonna just become like maybe masters at this, and women are gonna be just starting at the beginning stage. And I hope that changes. I hope that changes. So.
We had we had two good sized programs that were, with fairly large classes. They're not really classes. The programs last for 4 months or longer. They're a lot more expensive than the classes. And we had two pretty well attended programs that both ended in 2023. So we had a lot of guys going through the programs. And,
Mm.
this year we did some stuff that was like next level. I mean,
Mm.
if you weren't there to see it, a lot of people just, even the people that were doing it wouldn't believe that it's possible that you could do it. So I mean, you were there, or you have heard about some of the stuff that we were doing.
Mm.
So, you know, one of the things that, because I'm always trying to get the work up higher, because I mean, there's a great amount of potential to what I can do, but I'm
Mhm.
really allowed to do it because people just don't have the money or the time in other words, they're in it for a year, they're in it for 2 years, and then they get married or they get a new job or, something's coming up and they can't stay with the program. We got the new continuum program that we're hoping is going to bypass some of that. But, you know, last fall, approximately a year ago, we got to a very advanced place with a large number of men and two women. So I said to myself, okay, we're going to do something we haven't done before, you know, and we're going to try to do it. It's going to take us a few months, but we're going to see if we can get there. And we did, attempt to do it, and we were able to get there. And it was something that we were doing with a plant elemental. That's
Mm.
to the details of it, but we were doing this particular type of work with a plant spirit, more or less. So that it worked out really good. And so I decided that, okay, if they were able to digest that and put it into practice, then we're going to go for the gusto. And I wanted both groups to try to get to the point where they could work on the woman or the man and get them back on that second puberty thing and start the process of recapturing their original spirit. In other words, what we call returning that person to their natal spirit. So it's
Mm.
a complicated thing to do. And, we did some of the preliminary work at an event that we had in February of this year. And then after that, that sort of kicked it off, started it. And we were trying to find the women that would be willing to go along for the ride. And so we did. And after about 2 months, one of the men broke through and started the process of returning her to her original spirit. In other words, bringing her original female energy on, right?
Mm.
And it's an intense experience where the man or the women will basically say they felt like they were dying at the point at which they were ready to cross the threshold. And of course, what's dying is your old self, your old sexual self, right? But it does
Yes.
feel like you're going through this process. You almost feel like a part of you is dying, like something's being taken away from you, and something is. And if
Mhm.
you've been doing this work, if you're not part of the group that I was with, then it does feel really weird. We tell you about it, and we explain it and all like that, but when it starts happening, you still kind of freak out a little bit. And so I thought to myself, okay, this is amazing that it just 2 months. Normally it takes a lot longer. That this brother got to this point in time, and then another brother about 3 weeks later got to that point, and then another one, and I was,
Mm.
this is absolutely crazy that these brothers have broken through like that. And we had at least, four women that we worked on a lot. I mean, like, 8, 9, 10 sessions or more.
Hmm.
Um, and, we got almost 9 men in the spring of this year to cross over and to be able to do that. Out of all the women that we worked on, some of the women did experience high level orgasm, but none of them wanted to
Hmm.
learn how to do it. Not one. All
Wow.
9 men were willing to learn and willing and did achieve it. None of the women would even try. It was very
Mm.
frustrating. It was very frustrating because I believe the women can do it easier than the men. But and I just knew that after they had experienced it, that they would be willing to learn how to do it, but none of them were. Um, so it can be very frustrating. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just one of the milestones that we achieved this year. Um, and that was the largest group of men because they did some other things. So we had more than 20 men this year that achieved
Hmm.
stuff that men in Grand Tri never achieved before. And so, there are women who are doing some things that women have never done before, but not at the level that the men were in 2023. So I'm hoping that, the women will hear this and uh, and will respond and will you know try to help us figure out what we can do to change that dynamic. I understand what you're saying about the trust, um, and I mean it makes sense because
Hmm.
I mean it's not like the men don't have trust issues too, you
Right.
know. So the men do have trust issues, and the men got all kinds of issues. Believe me, as you well know.
Yes.
I do hope that we will get past some of these um, um, you know, uh, sticking points because I mean there's so much that remains to be experienced. I mean, that just is. Okay. Anything else you'd like to say to our audience before we shut this down? It's been such a pleasure.
I just want to say, exactly. I just want to say thank you, Master Yao. Thank you to Grand Trine. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you at the next class or event or whatever in connection to Grand Trine. And
Thank you
that's
so
it.
much. Okay, we hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and share and do the notification thing. Um, and send us your comments and tell us what you want to hear next. This podcast, we're getting this thing to the point where we're having a podcast every day, during the week. We're not there yet, but we're really hoping that you're going to help us get there by telling us what you want to hear, what you want to know. Um, okay, good night. Thank you.
Good night.